Snake, what are you doing?
I'm in a box.
A cardboard box? Why are you...
I don't know, I was just looking at it, and suddenly I got this irresistible urge to get inside. No, not just an urge. More than that. It was my destiny to be here. In the box.
Hideo Kojima is a true character in gaming history. Whatever your feelings about his games, you can't deny that nobody makes them quite like him. Nothing demonstrates this more succinctly than the sneaky Cold War odyssey with a bitchin' theme song, that is Snake Eater. For the third installment of Metal Gear Solid, the futuristic technobabble was ditched in favour of 1960s nuclear tension, sprinkled liberally with James Bond-inspired camp. American operative Snake is sent into the jungle to rescue a defecting Soviet scientist, but things waste no time in going tits up, and Snake becomes the world's only hope of avoiding several thousand nuke-shaped holes. The setup might be straightforward, but this being Kojima, it doesn't stay that way.
I'll get you out of here, I promise. And we've got some of the best backup we could ask for. Look. That's what they were making you build.
Yes. The capable of launching.
How to go about preventing Armageddon then? Well, Snake Eater provides an area full of baddies and challenges you to get to the end however you can. The levels aren't as grand as in Thief or Hitman, but they share the same spirit, as there's no right way to complete your objective. Instead, you're encouraged to experiment with your abilities and gadgets, mastering the environment and figuring out effective strategies. It's slightly brilliant. The process of getting your bearings in a new area, identifying threats and forming a plan of action is the heart of Snake Eater's gameplay, and it's hard not to feel like a badass while you're doing it. Scan the grass for telltale rustling. Listen with your microphone for footsteps. Keep an eye out for boot prints and always assume there's one more dude than you can see. Rash decisions lead to swift death, and only through patience, planning and flexibility can you survive the jungle gauntlet. A good stealth game should make the player feel powerful when hidden and helpless when discovered, and Snake Eater nails that better than any other Metal Gear, helped in no part by the wonderful realization of the jungle, which is by no means a soulless change of backdrop. I also love the sense of risk and reward that pervades the mechanics. It's often easier to sneak by a guard than take him down, for instance, yet he could provide ammo or the location of his mates. And clearing an area makes it much easier to find all the hidden goodies, but obviously requires you to dispose of several AK-wielding goons. Should you get spotted, also, there's usually a brief window to get an attack in before the alarm is raised. In short, skill is repaid, while less confident players must forego loot. Perhaps the most radical addition to the Metal Gear formula is the camouflage system, wherein you must collect uniforms to blend into the environment. There's a sense of power that comes with being near invisible, and an equal feeling of helplessness when the terrain doesn't permit effective concealment. Snake Eater's guards are generally less derpy than those of prior Metal Gears, and all in all this is by far the most stealth-focused chapter in the franchise. But there's more than just goons with guns to contend with. The jungles teem with wildlife, friendly or otherwise, whose juicy innards must be devoured to sustain Snake's stamina. Lack of stamina leaves you slow, inaccurate, prevents wounds from healing, and ultimately leaves you comatose. The quest for food is therefore never-ending, and it's worryingly compelling to sample every critter and shrub you come across. Animals can also be employed against your enemies, either as distractions or weapons, and seeing a hungry guard scarf down a toxic frog never gets old for me. The sheer abundance of toys and tricks can be daunting, and Snake Eater definitely took me a while to grasp, even though I'd already played Sons of Liberty. If anything though, this only meant my eventual success was all the more pleasing, and my journey from clumsy gunslinger to ghost-like assassin was ludicrously fun. A sense of actual progression in a game, as one's skills improve from the start to the end, is something I imagine must be hard to create. Overall, Snake Eater tries a downright crazy number of interesting things and gets a downright commendable number of them right. But for all my terrifying fanboy love, I'm not blind to the splotches on Kojima's canvas. I won't lie, a few of these problems could be deal breakers for some people. Let's start with the issue you'll notice before you've even pushed a button. Metal Gear is notorious for its love of cutscenes. Snake Eater is no exception, though the more methodical gameplay means there's often a longer gap between cutscenes than in any other game in the main series. Snake Eater does, however, set a bad first impression with a particularly exposition-laden introduction, regularly interrupting the tutorial so your mentor can ramble in a manner that feels way too preachy so early on. I genuinely worry how many people must have been turned off by this harrowing intro, and I have a hard time defending it. I can only assure you that once the game is confident you have the basics down, things do get more manageable. And while there are altogether too many radio conversations, the actual animated cutscenes are more or less sublime, with stylish cinematography and animation that more than hold up years later. Characters have distinct mannerisms, exploiting the motion capture to its full, and the acting is mostly well above the usual gaming fare, though the script gives the occasional whiff of odd translation. Snake himself stood out to me more as a personality than his future iterations, and has some subtle moments despite his bombastic choice of career. The length and extent to which the gameplay gets interrupted is really my only problem. Kojima, for all his wisdom, really needs somebody to sit him down and explain that sometimes less can be more. The mechanics are hardly without fault either. Much as I enjoy the camouflage system, Snake Eater lacks the seamless implementation Guns of the Patriots later employed. Instead, it requires constant visits to a dedicated menu, complete with separate face and uniform options for maximum monotony. It never quite stops being annoying, especially when darting between spots that require a change of clothes. The camo annoyance does, however, pale in comparison to a catastrophic camera issue that was mercifully fixed in later releases of the game. Here's hoping the next Snake Eater includes another belated patch. On quite a personal note, I also find that the tranquilizer gun and thermal goggles are overpowered, and so experienced players might want to handicap themselves to keep up the challenge. Beyond this, Snake Eater also retains many of the franchise's control quirks, which seem increasingly out of place. Aiming a gun in first person and peering over a log requires some mighty finger gymnastics, and some of the melee combat relies on weirdly specific stick and button maneuvers. Years of practice have given me the muscle memory to overcome these strange arrangements, but the controls are quite assuredly daunting to a newcomer. Even playing another Metal Gear beforehand didn't ease my transition that much. Yet as undeniable as its flaws may be, I just can't stop loving Snake Eater. What other game can pit you against a man made of bees in the first half, but still leave you reeling from a gut-punch ending? Metal Gear has always existed in a magical version of our own world, and Snake Eater weaves goofy and serious moments together, avoiding the common misconception that effective drama requires a perpetual po-face. If anything, the wackier bits disarm you, so something as humble as the world's longest ladder somehow manages to be beautiful. Snake Eater is a big-budget release that retains a clear creative vision, leading to a sensory feast on par with a calorie mate. At the end of the day, Snake Eater isn't the easiest sell. My years of experience have dulled me to its learning curve and plentiful cutscenes. Certainly it wouldn't be my first suggestion for somebody just trying to get into stealth games, since it's less approachable than, say, Splinter Cell. But for better or worse, there'll never be another Snake Eater. And I'm glad. In this age when cookie-cutter sequels dominate the market and innovation seems taboo, Mr. Kojima took a survival knife to his famous franchise and stitched together a freakish classic. It still defies comparison a decade later. Not everybody will find such an exotic beast appetizing though, and this is definitely a Marmite game.
Does any of that make sense?
Not even a little.
American operative Snake is sent into the jungle to rescue a defecting Soviet scientist, but things waste no time in going tits up, and Snake becomes the world's only hope of avoiding several thousand nuke-shaped holes. And then my stomach rumbled.